Welcome back to Cards and Comics, guys. We are live. 4-year anniversary. All right, we are going live here. Hey, guys, welcome to Cards and Comics. 4 years on YouTube. How is everyone doing? No one's up here yet, so we'll see how this goes. All right. So, 4 years on YouTube. Wow. It's been a while. Hopefully people can join, or I'll just do kind of what I was going to do anyway. So the format for today is we're going to go through some, uh, you know, my YouTube journey a little bit, like what's going on with the channel. Last year, I made some announcements. One announcement I made last year. So welcome anyone new to the channel. But last year I talked about I was going to do less things like live and scripted videos. And this year, I'm going to do things a little different again. And I'm working on more and more, things around the collecting of on my channel and just what I'm doing in my actual collection side of it, and to share that with everyone. So I'll share with you guys where I'm at on two of sort of my bigger collection goals, my Griffey collection and my 90s box break journey. One of my big goals is to open every box from the 90s for baseball. Um, Football would be very tough to do as well, but that would be fun. Hello, sir. So, welcome, Card Hunter. Welcome, people. I know people are starting to come in. 4 years on the YouTube, the tubes, whatever you want to call it. It's been a fun journey. Nationals coming up, so as I want to talk about kind of some updates on my collection, where I'm at, from my main goals, and then because that'll lead right into the national. We'll talk about the national quite a bit. It's Cleveland, and I guess I'm in the minority. I love the Cleveland venue. I really like how it's laid out. It's so simple. It's literally just a straight line. You go from front to back. You don't have to go into nooks and crannies and get lost trying to find your way around the Chicago venue. I understand the Chicago venue is a bigger venue, but to me, it's just not as fun. And it's just a lot more walking. Chicago wears you out, man. Like, it's like you could walk a mile just to get from one table to another to try to, do a deal. It feels like, and then if you're going back and forth to where the autograph guys are to dealers, it's just, and I get that it's a lot of tables, but, and that's what people like. People like the National to be huge. They want it to be a massive, massive card show. They want to see things there they'll never see anywhere else. And I get that. But to me, Cleveland is almost like it's smaller. I think they said something like a third less tables. But to me, it's almost a right sizing of the National. And I just like the venue. And that area of Cleveland is kind of fun. It's not right downtown. So a little suburby for me. All right, so I want to go in and hopefully this works. I've been working on some um, sharing of screens here. So let's see here. All right, so we'll go here to channel content. All right. All right. Hold on. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. There we go. Hey, look at that. I did something new. All right. I don't do a lot of lives. So what I want to talk about here is, so scrolling down, you can see my first video was on July 19th right here. 2020. So, I was really, thinking like I would just do mail days and a few box breaks, personal box breaks, and that was really what the channel designed to do. And it sort of stayed pretty true. If you look at my content, it's a lot of that, a lot of just box breaks and my personal collection updates, and then I do some topics, and if something kind of irks me, or things come out like today, PSA is going to grade comic books, and everyone's got their opinion on that, and things like that. Yeah, I'll weigh in if I feel like I really have something to say. So yeah, you can see, 2019, or sorry, 2020, started the channel on July 19th. I did a little like test intro. I didn't publish it on the 14th to kind of figure out how to do all this stuff. And then, from then on, I've been just, doing videos. If I look at my video content from a year over year basis, I did ran the numbers, and I'm going to do a little video on that, just kind of like analytics update. But, I average probably, 3 to 4 videos a week. And if you look at, views in the last year, I've gone down in views from 2023. So, my views are down about 30 views a video, I think. And but I'm putting out about the same amount of videos. So maybe a little bit more this year than I did last year. So the idea that doing weekly content consecutively might work for some channels. For me, when I do weekly, like every day of a week consecutively, I might see more subscribers, but I don't see a lot more views. So I do think like that's a way to build subscribers, but not necessarily get a lot more views on your video. Your video's got to have something interesting and something clickbaity, or get into the logarithm, to get a lot of views, right? So you got to have something in there for a lot of people to want to click on. If it's too esoteric, like when I do my videos, right now I got it sorted by oldest. But if I go to newest, right? If I go to like my new videos, like when I talk about 98 Crusades, or Donner Studio, or 94 Score, or the Blue Beetle comic books, or EX Century Fenway favorites, or favorites for Fenway. Those are very specific topics that's only going to cover a few people, and I know that. So I don't look at those videos as like failures when they don't get 1,000 views. It's just what I have kind of said. This is my area of YouTube that I'm going to really focus on. 90s box breaks. Talking about these insert sets and what's cool and what's rare, and that's kind of fun for me. So that's my little area of the YouTube world, is to kind of do that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, like if you go back, to the whole, that's sort of how everything began. And, I want to get into, now I want to get into, kind of like the whole, collection update. And then we'll start talking about the national. So let's go into over here, and we'll talk about my Griffey collection. All right. So if you go into my Griffey collection, I think it's fair to say that you know that I have focused pretty much exclusively on a few areas with Griffey. The refractor collection and the on card autos from the 90s. That's really where I have planted a flag and said this is where I'm going to try and build a collection. If I scroll down here to the bottom here in my spreadsheet, you'll see that I have cataloged for Griffey in the 90s to have 124 total refractors, of which I have 77 for 62% of his total refractor output of the 90s. So, I'm well over 50% now of his 90s refractors. I'm missing some big ones. I mean, these 99 team finest red, blue, and golds are tough. Uh, Early Road of the Hall, his Fortune 15, the man, the really hard, low numbered ones. I have a few, but I don't have a ton of them. So those are going to be big targets for me. If I go to the national, or when I go to the national, I will be looking for them. But I'll talk about the national a little bit about kind of strategies and what to look for and what not to kind of get your hopes up about. Um, but you can see, there's a few things that are on here that are from a refractor definition that I don't know if like if everyone agrees with that definition of what a refractor is. For example, the whole thing um, around the 95 Bowman's Best, those diffractors. Like are those really refractors? I mean, um, if you look at how how they're kind of labeled and cataloged, I'm talking about this mirror image diffractor. Um, yeah, I guess those are refractors. The ones I don't have on here, I don't have any of the jumbos. So like any of the like I think 99 Tops Chrome has a jumbo. There's jumbo refractors in certain years for in fact they made a jumbo refractor set. And I don't have them because they're just not what I want to collect. So I guess, if I wanted to have all the refractors from the 90s that came in packs, I'd have to look at the jumbos eventually. But I just don't like them. I just don't like the jumbos. So I've been just really focused on the cards I have, like, the standard size cards. If I go through here, like I'm missing the 96 finest silver. That's kind of weird, like that's not a tough one to find. Um, 96 star power. But you can see I have a huge swath of 96 and 97. Like 97, I have a lot of the Bowman's Best by missing some of the mirror image. And then you got the inverted, those inverted refractors from Bowman's Best are really tough. There's such a hidden rarity there. I think I talked about this in a video about, on the 90s side of it is we don't know how rare some of these cards are in reality. Like, what is the inverted mirror image atomic refractors print run? Like, could it be under 100? I mean, you hardly ever see it. I mean, for a Griffey card that, Griffey's always popular, it's a card that's a ghost. So, like, I've seen the 24 karat Fleur Brilliance Gold a lot, or precious metal gems a lot more often than I've seen an atomic mirror image inverted. So it's just one of those cards. I'm like, how many of them really are out there? I mean, some of these could be entirely like 30 cards or 25 cards ever made because they were a hidden insert. They weren't even really, I don't think the first year they were even on the checklist. So it's just one of those weird things. The embossed, I don't have any of the embossed refractors. Dwayne, I know he's on here. He's got those. So like, kudos to the people who have those. They're going to be tough, man. Like those embossed refractors are going to be tough. It's just going to be because no one wants to sell them. That's you know availability on those cards is going to be tough. If you have them, why do you want to sell them? No one wants to sell them. And if they want to sell them, why wouldn't they want tons of money for them, right? Because they're super cool and they're super hard to get. So I think the golden anniversary from 98 Bowman Chrome, that's going to be obviously numbered to 5. That's theoretically, he has no 101 refractors. Griffey's lowest numbered refractor is that Bowman Chrome golden anniversary out of 5. That's his, like that's would be the alpha and omega if you get down to it. But people don't treat it that way. I really don't. I mean, obviously it's really rare short printed, but like I I hear tons of people say they want the gold embossed refractor. I don't hear very many people say I want the golden anniversary, like number to 5. Like, so I think for Griffey completionists like me and other people, this is probably the holy grail. But for like a lot of just regular people who love 90s cards, it's the embossed refractor is the holy grail of refractors. A lot of people would say on the auto side, it's the dual mantle Griffey is the holy grail card. And that's probably true. I can't really argue with that. I just say to me, it's like that card's been sort of ruined with how people have got aftermarket Griffey autos on a lot of the mantles. So those you have to be careful when you buy those. If it's not an after, like a non-pack pulled Griffey auto on that card. So again, you got Bowman Chrome Gold in 99 out of 25. That's a really rare one. The man's out of 75. So you've got this kind of a pretty a sneaky one here. The prominent figures out of 70. Not as popular, but it's still below 100. So it's actually even more rare than the man. And then you got the red, the team finest red and gold, 50 out of 25. So those are all super super tough cards. So getting any of those cards will be awesome. So that's what I'm hoping to look for when I go to the national. But that's like I say hope because they're going to be tough to find in under normal circumstances. Uh, Thanks, Dufax, Mookie. Awesome to have you guys here. Thanks for the good wishes. Yeah, guys, appreciate it. So yeah, like looking at again, 62% complete. I think it's great. That I'm getting closer and closer. I think by the end of the year, I can have probably down to 75% of I could probably get to 75%. Thanks, Mike. 1,000 more Griffey refractors would put me under, man. Like I think 162. I think what I said. That's a pretty good number, and I know I'm missing the jumbos, and I'm probably missing a few more that I when I scoured Baseball Cardpedia, and then just did my own research. This is what I came up with. I don't really know there's a list out there, an official like Griffey checklist out there. I'm sure some of the Griffey, maybe some of the guys on the Griffey Facebooks or whatever, yeah, like Instagram and Facebook guys would have some checklists. But yeah, hey, good evening, Double Sports Cards. Thank you, appreciate it. So yeah, I've created my own checklist. Um, if you want to email me, my email is listed on my channel. You can definitely, if you want my checklist, what I've created, it's what the best I have to go off of because no one's really the documentation on Baseball Cardpedia is great in terms of sets, but it doesn't break it down by player. All right, so that's the Griffey side of it. Hey, Rawl. Hey, man, how are you? Thank you. It's awesome to see you here. Awesome, man. Hopefully, the Albany show was last week, right? Yeah, I never got a chance to make it out. Um, yeah, it's like so close to the national. It's like a really tough one to get to. Um, but yeah, like I can show you like so let's go into my um wax box. So here's my wax collection. Um or what I've opened on my channel. So here we go. Like this is definitely a pipe dream. I mean, there's 432 unique wax boxes made of products in the 90s. 432. And you can see they really proliferate starting in 95, but in 98 and 99, obviously, you're really getting quite a few more, of those products being made. You can see that I've got actually more of the 90s, the late 90s and early 90s because that's by choice. You know, my whole thing is like um, you know, yeah, I agree. I agree on the 98 Bowman Golden Anniversary. It's subtle, right? It's not like flashy. That 98 sorry, the 97 embossed is kind of it's really to a lot of people it is the best looking design with like everything under the sun. It's embossed, it's die cut, it's refractory, it's just everything. It's got that cool pattern on it. So it's all the bells and whistles right on that card. Um oh, show is this Sunday. Okay, wow. I might end up going this week if it's Sunday. I'll have to see where I'm at. I might need to sell a few cards to fund my national trip. It's getting more and more expensive to do these trips and to have like enough capital to bring home something cool at the National now. It's like in the old days, I remember taking $500 to the show and thinking I was going to have, 5 or 10 cards coming back home, and now it's like $500 won't even get you, uh, you know, nothing, pretty much, on the rare Griffey side. Um, yeah, man, like I've got them laying down over here. I got those, all those inserts from the '90s just in a box. I keep opening them. They're all sitting here. Like, I have like piles of '90s cards, just like that. I've opened in boxes from the last couple breaks, just sitting here. Here's some refractors, and like, so I just collect them, put them to the side, and put them all in a box. So I'll bring those whenever I get, if I end up going tomorrow. Sorry, I think it's always tomorrow. It's on Sunday. So yeah, like on my journey on those sets. So by design, I don't want to do, like, say, a lot of the early '90s. What I plan on doing is, if I get close, then I'm going to do sort of like a massive, like, early '90s box break. I'm going to try to open like 15 boxes in like one day, and just to get them off the table, because, 90 Donruss, 90 Fleer, um, 91 Fleer, 91 Donruss, all the mass produced 92 stuff, like, there's nothing really in there besides maybe some elites that you can look for. But that stuff should be quick rips, try to get through it, maybe hit an elite or something. But the whole point is, like, I'm really looking to open the yeah, thank you, man. Thanks on 4 years. Um, I'm really hoping to really focus on the '90s, because the late '90s, because that's where a lot of the fun stuff is, and a lot of stuff I missed out on. One of the reasons I'm doing this is because I went to college in '97, right? So, or sorry, I went to college. I keep saying '97. I went to college in '93, and I graduated, um, you know, in like '97. So that period is a blank out. So from like 90, so 95, 96, 97, 98, and 99. Because in 98, 99, I really had no money. I was like, working, but I wasn't making a ton of money. So really from 96, 97, really 97, 98, and 99 were blackout years for me. I started to slowly get back in 99. Again, the reason why I love 99 Bowman's Best is because that was the first product I really bought to get back into opening packs. I was always collecting vintage during those time periods. Even though I didn't have a lot of capital, I still would go to shows and try to pick up cards here and there. But I started opening packs again around '99 with Bowman's Best. And then I really got into Ultimate Victory as well, because of Rick Ankiel and the chase for Rick Ankiel. So those are kind of really nostalgic for me. 99 Bowman's Best, 99 Upper Deck Ultimate Victory. Those two sets are really like kind of like tug on my heartstrings for me. So, like, they're not like the hobby's best products. They're not the thing that people look at. I mean, as far as like the greatest sets ever made, but they are, to me, a lot of fun. Um, yeah, on the 99, I'm working on it. I have started building checklists, like here, what you're seeing on the screen. For some sets, I haven't done 99 Bowman's Best yet, because I'm a little far away from having um enough. I want to get to about 25%, then I'll build the checklist. I'm about, I probably have about 30 to 40 refractors from that set. I want to build a refractor set for 99 Bowman's Best. That's sort of like what I'd love to do, is build the refractor set. But you saw, I don't know if you've seen on Instagram, if you go on my Cards and Comics and Instagram, I did post, I've got the rainbow for Griffey for 99 Bowman's Best. I have both, so you've got the best performers and the base card, and I have both the refractor and the atomic for both of those cards. So now I have all 4 Griffey refractors from the 99 Bowman's Best set. And so some of them are going to go to PSA soon to get graded. I think the 99 Bowman's Best refractor is sitting right here in a pile of cards waiting to be graded. Yeah, it's sitting right here. So that's going to be, a lot of fun to get that sent off, um, and see what I get. I love, I really love, you know, here it is right here. So here is the Bowman's Best Griffey Atomic Refractor, right here. So this is going to be going out and um, to the national. When I go to the national, that's going to be one of the cards I'm going to grade there. You want to see the 3D Clemente? Well, that was definitely the highlight from last year, and it's got a grand place of honor right behind me. It's the first card in my Clemente set. So I actually have it placed before the rookie in my run. So it's right here. I know you get glare from the camera and everything. But yeah, it's my lead off. I don't know if I've ever shown you the back. The back is really nice and white. So it's definitely a card that didn't see a lot of time in a box or just getting aged and yellow. So the 3D Clemente was last year's, and man, like we'll go back on to the national discussion next, but because yeah, like I feel like you know you know I will never top sort of that from a single card purchase at the national, because even if I got a 97 finest embossed Griffey, it's still not the same level as a 68 3D Clemente. So, you know, for a lot of people, and again, I know, like, Dwayne, some folks who buddies of mine on the Griffey side might say, like that, the embossed Griffey is, or one of those really tough Griffey refractors or the Mantle Griffey Auto. I just don't feel like they're the same level right now as a 68 3D. But again, I've been chasing the 68 3D my whole life, so for me, it's still a much bigger card for me. Even if it was not even the value thing, it would be just because of how long it took me to get that card as a Clemente collector. Um, so yeah, like yeah, the Ruth rookie. you know, I think the thing that's fun for me that I finally realized, especially last year at the national was, I don't have to have every card. I just have to, I just want the ones that are really cool and special for kind of how I collect. And if I have to trade something like, last year, if you watch the videos and the trade I did, some tough cards I traded, cards like the 53 Mantle, which are really, really tough. And, um, you know, um, I think that was, for a lot of people, they're like, hey, man, I wouldn't trade a Ruth and a Mantle for a Clemente. And I'm like, yeah, I understand. And that I get your point. But it's like, that's not who I collect. I do have a lot of Mantle cards in my collection, but if I have to trade a Mantle for a Clemente, I would, because I collect Clemente. I would trade Mantle for Griffey. Like if someone offered me the Mantle Griffey Auto for one of my Mantle cards I have here, like as a trade in, like I would probably do that, because I would rather have the Mantle Griffey Auto than like say a 64 Mantle. Something that I can probably replace. But like people aren't kind of making those offers, so it's kind of like an offer that's not probably realistic for me to say, like, oh, someone's going to trade you one of the better Griffey cards out there for like a pretty easy to find 60s Mantle. Even if it's worth a lot of money. Like that's the one thing that people don't account for in these kind of trades is, even though money's money, sometimes it's like the replacement cost. Like I can get that Mantle card pretty much anytime I want, but that Mantle Griffey Auto, that's a lot harder to find, and that card is tougher to come across. So that does happen in trades, and sort of you saw that with that 68 3D trade I made. Was the guy was like, I'm never going to have these cards ever again. Like, uh, if I trade this to you or without selling it to you, I'm not going to replace that 68 3D card very easily, and I can probably find another 53 Mantle. that you have, a lot easier. So that is something that, happens in those kind of transactions. Um, but yeah, going to the national, I know a lot of people are, have talked about going or not going. I mean, is everyone, here? I know there's a few folks here that might be going. I'm going to go with my buddy, Doug. We're not going together, but we're going to meet up there. We're going to share a hotel. We're going to go to some of the trade nights together. We're going to do go to dinner together. I'm going to go to the Thursday night. Hopefully, if work doesn't crash down on my head, the Thursday night YouTube get together. Um, that should be fun. I haven't done it yet. The first few years it's been done, I didn't feel like my channel was kind of like something to, to walk in and be like, hey, look at me, I'm a YouTuber. Now I'm like, I know enough people that if I walk in, at least I won't be like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what's he doing here? So Doug's gonna go with me. Doug runs. He's got the Joe Wood Collector channel. So he just started up. So if you guys want to go out and check his channel out, he's very focused on pre-war cards. But we're both from Indiana. We collected together. We actually work together. I'm gonna have Doug on my channel. I'm gonna force him to come on my channel at some point because we used to work together. And we didn't. That's how we met. Doug, I would set up at shows, and he would go to shows, but I didn't realize that he worked at the same company I worked at. We worked for a flavor company down in Indianapolis. So I was a research scientist, and he worked out in the shipping area. So like we never saw each other because it's two different buildings. So like we didn't. I didn't even know he worked there, and then like we ran to each of the shows, and then we started like kind of like looking at our cards together, and it was like we would hang out, and it's like, yeah, it was cool to find someone at work that was a collector. That was a lot of fun. And then, we've gone to a lot of shows together since then, and he's a cool guy. And we were at the national. He was in the national video with me. So if you look at the Clemente Collectors video, Doug's with me in that video. So it's like, he's been one of my big hobby friends. Some of the guys, Russ, from India as well, Indie Card Exchange. The guys there, were all folks that, I knew for a long time. So, when we go to the national, Cleveland is close enough to Indy that a lot of my Indianapolis folks, I think, are going to be there. Again, I'll be meeting up with Doug, and hopefully we all hang out and have a meal together. That would be great for me to go with all the folks I used to set up at shows with, for all us to kind of hang out again. That'd be pretty sweet. It's kind of like, coming home, and that's what the hobby's all about, man. Like finding people, hanging out with folks that you come into contact with, and that's what I'm hoping to do when the national comes back around. As far as again, the national itself, a lot of people talk about getting prepped and getting ready. So I mentioned it a little earlier, like I've got all these refractors I need to try to find, and uh trying to get into that, um, you know, um, that kind of trap. The hobbies at the national is a little bit of a trap, because it's so big, even though this year is going to be a little smaller, but it's so big, it kind of gets you into thinking like you're going to find any card that you want there. And it's not true. What you're going to find, and what you usually find, is a lot of the same cards. You'll see a lot of vintage, you'll see a lot of modern cards, and a lot of the same cards. And that is the one thing that I think a lot of people go to the national with. They think, I'm going to be able to complete a set. I'm going to be able to find that obscure, Ray Lewis card, number to 25 that I've been looking for. And then it's not there. Last year, even at the Chicago show, there was not many dealers selling 90s cards. Hey, thanks, Brent. 4 years. Yeah, it's been a journey, man. Last year at the national, there was not many dealers selling 90s cards. And the ones who did have them, they sold out fast, the good stuff. Um, and so it just, one of those things where, and I'm talking baseball and football. Basketball, different story. There was a lot of Jordan stuff at the National. And Jordan stuff is really expensive. So it doesn't quite have the liquidity as I think some of the baseball stuff, because again, you can go out for $1,500 still and get a pretty nice Griffey card. And that in Jordans doesn't get you very much. You can get a nice card, but you're not going to get something pretty rare like you can still in Griffey. And so those hard to find Griffey cards, embossed refractors, PMGs, rubies, whatever you're going to say are the the best essential credentials, they were very scarce. And if you found them, they were probably of players that were not Griffey, not Jeter, not Thomas. Like I found a Vlad Jr. card there. I think I found um a gosh, I'm trying to think of the set. But it was numbered out of 100 refractor. So I found one really cool Vlad Jr. or sorry, Vlad card. I keep calling him Vlad Jr. I don't know why. Vlad Guerrero refractor, like Hall or Nothing, I think maybe out of 100. So I found like one cool card, that wasn't Griffey. I found last year on the Griffey site, I did find the 96 Select Mirror Red. So I found the Mirror Red. So I have one of the mirror cards now, thanks to the National. But everything else is pretty slim pickings. So I'm hoping this year, and again, a lot of dealers I talked to said that they're thinking about bringing 90s content to this year's show. That they looked at what was selling, what people were asking for, and getting 90s cards was something that, because some said they had them, they just don't bring them because they were bringing like stuff they thought would sell better. So let's see if that's true. This would be a great litmus test to see how real popular the 90s are, because if dealers have switched some of their inventory, stocked up on 90s cards, are they going to show up? Are we going to have a 90s palooza at this year's show? Or are we going to see, like last year, just like a small intermittent, like a sprinkle of 90s, like a little bit of salt and pepper shaker across all the tables of 90s cards? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be fun to see. And how many people are going to be out there, um, you know, um, scouring the tables? And I'm going to just put this out there. So the early VIP guys, I honestly think that the early VIP guys are going to target 90s cards. If I was paying for that early VIP, early access, getting there, it's going to be trying to find some deals or some of those rare 90s cards before the show opens. I do think that could happen. I really do think that it's so competitive in the 90s right now for some of these cards that people will try to get in early, will try to get them off the table early. And when the general mission opens, some of those big cards might already be gone. But they have to be in the room to start with, right? So they may not even be there like they were like last year, where a lot of them just, a lot of dealers didn't have them. David, on the crackdown, yeah, it's going to be interesting because I'm wondering what kind of tables they were targeting. Was it mostly modern? Was it, newer dealers who were paying for those tables to try to set up selling, let's say, more modern cards? Or were they the same old, old school vintage dealers? Because I want to say, I collect vintage, so I know people are going to, this might go the wrong way, is I'm not sure we need more vintage dealers at the National. I'm not sure we do. I'm not sure we need a couple more tables of ungraded VGX, 60s cards. Cool pre-war cards, I'm down for it. Guys that have premium commons for set builders, I'm down with that guy. Those guys should be at the National. Guys showing up with beat up, VGX 60s and 70s cards, I don't think the National is the venue for you. I mean, that's just me. Like that's just what I think. I would rather that VGX Hall of Fame 70s and 60s guy be replaced by a 90s guy, a guy with high end commons, a guy with a lot of pre-war ungraded for set building, um, a guy that has a lot of 90s and 80s wax. Like, those are the dealers I'm looking for. I'm not looking for another mid-grade vintage dealer, right? There's plenty of those. Like, you can throw a ball in any direction and probably hit one. So those are not. We don't need more of those dealers. Do you think the hobby will shift more attention to? I think it sort of has on the rare 90s inserts. If you look at just action and auctions, if you look at inserts like I just talked about, on some inserts, pull one up here. Sorry, have stuff laying around here. Yeah, I mentioned the embossed refractor. Here's one right here. Here's a Greg Maddux silver embossed refractor. Stuff like that, the white hots, the the white hots from 95 Pinnacle. Those cards, the Griffey just sold, what was it, like, $2,000 for PSA 10? How could you not? Yeah, 60 to 70 VG and 25 bucks, that's fine. For those mid-grade set builders, like I said, if you're bringing cards for set builders, I don't mind that. I just don't like the guys that come with those massive, display cases full of just beat up, and again, everyone has price points. I understand. But there's so many of those guys with those showcases full of kind of VGX 60s and 70s cards. But hey, if you've got them in binders or in boxes for set builders, that's great. I just feel like, like there's so many guys out there with like VGX Manals, and Clemente cards and Maze cards. I'd rather see someone in some other inventory, honestly. That stuff I've seen a lot. But yeah, like the hobby has shifted to some extent. The problem with 90s cards is availability. It's just there's not enough to go around. It feels like when you go to a show like the National, it's like not very many dealers have specialized in it. You look at Jordan, right? There's so many dealers who just specialize in Jordan, Kobe, that tier of 90s basketball inserts, that there is at least 4 or 5 dealers at the National, maybe more, because I don't really deal in those cards, maybe more, that just have those cards, right? So if you're looking for a 90s Jordan auto, if you're looking for a 90s Jordan refractor, if you're looking for a Duncan Go Nuts card, whatever it is, you're going to find one at the National. It may be super expensive. It may not be the price you want, but you could find that card. If I said I'm going to be looking for a 99, top stars and steels Frank Thomas holographic gold, or maybe even a 93 finest refractor Nolan Ryan. There's probably a 5% chance that Frank Thomas will be there, a 50-50 chance the best refractor in the 93 finest set's even at the show. 50-50 chance that there's a 93 finest Nolan Ryan at the show. So that's just the difference. It's like the Jordan, you can probably name any Jordan refractor, autograph, and there's going to be a more than 50% chance that card's there. Probably 85-90% chance you'll find that card you're looking for. But if you just name a few really cool 90s cards and say, what's the odds that there's going to be a man refractor, let's just say of any player at the show, less than 50% chance that a Griffey's going to be there. I don't think there's going to be one. And if there is one, it's going to be snagged, like either at the dealer to dealer, selling at the show, or in that early VIP, but it's not going to survive long, because, it's just people, that's a card people love and want. So it's like, yeah, the availability, even if one happens to be there, will the general public even get a chance to buy it, to even get a chance to look at it, and that's the part that just, yeah, odds of just a base man Griffey there. Because I've seen, the base man Griffey card, number to 500 in a PSA 10. What's that card bringing now? $1,000? I mean, $800, $1,000 for just the base PSA 10 on the man. I mean, you would think that would encourage a lot of dealers to go out and really specialize it. But it's really tough, man. Like I think inventory is tough for these guys. Um, how come nobody collects inserts of Hall of Famers like Eddie Murray and Tim Raines? That's a great question, man. Like, thanks, hockey. That's a great question, and I hinted at it a little bit in my video on the '90s. I just opened up. I did that whole set. 95 Stadium Club ringleaders cards. So I had a full set, and I went through and did a full set break. And I said, look, there's Ozzie Smith, there's Eddie Murray, there's like, all these great 70s Hall of Famers in the set, guys who started in the 70s. I honestly think it's a huge miss that those guys don't get more love. Like a great example is Cal Ripken. Cal Ripken has tons of great 90s inserts, and so does Greg Maddux, so does Randy Johnson, but even Ozzie Smith and even George Brett. And I feel like those guys like George Brett, who are Tony Gwynn, they're tremendously collectible. They're big, like 93 Finest or, whatever, inserts gold embossed refractors from some of these guys. They don't bring a lot of money comparatively. And it's just a huge opportunity for people who are player collectors to get in there. But again, I hate to say it over and over. You go to the National, your odds of finding a 93 Finest Ozzie Smith refractor or George Brett refractor or something like that is so low. So low. Like at the National last year, I saw a 93 Finest set, a refractor set. I saw a guy doing a breakup where every card, I think it was Raleigh Fingers. I don't know if anyone saw Raleigh Fingers. I guess was really big into collecting sports cards. And I think he was responsible for that senior league, that kind of senior league baseball. And then the set that came out of it. I think he actually has made sports cards. But anyway, he's a big collector. He was breaking up his collection, and the 93 Finest set that he had put together, he was selling there, but like the price points were just insane. Like 2 or 3x of what the card would normally go for. So like, yeah, there was a card there, but it was a museum piece. It wasn't a realistic price point to sell the card for. But that was the only cards I saw there of 93 refractors outside of maybe a few, here and there, but it's like, yeah, like George Brett, Eddie Murray, Tony Gwynn, Cal Ripken. I think Cal Ripken's criminally underrated in all these sets. Yeah, they just you don't see him, I remember 2 Nationals ago, a guy had the full established set and he broke it up and he sold the Griffey out of it. And I'm kicking myself for not just buying everyone else. Like, just bought the set without the Griffey. Because, I could probably find that established Griffey eventually. That is like the one card I'm hoping is there is the established Griffey. That is my favorite card, like of the 90s. If I was going to like rank my favorite cards of the 90s of Griffey that are not autographs, like there's like the 93 Finest, you got the first game use card, the 97 embossed, the Mantle, all the autos, put them in kind of separate category. That established, along with the 24 karat brilliance Griffey, are in that top 5 somewhere. Like established, 24 karat, embossed, rubies, essential credentials. Like that established for me is like in that top 5, top 10 tier of all time Griffey cards. So I feel like that card is like, so I mean, if you see it in hand, the established cards are tremendous. Like if 97 embossed refractors, in hand are incredible. Established cards in hand are incredible, and the man refractor cards in hand are incredible. Fortune 15s are very nice too, but the refractor on the man, I don't know what they did. I don't know if it's the color combination, it was the etching, but the depth of the refractor on the man cards are something unreal. Like it's just when you look at that card and how it shines, it's a different level of refractor. It's like I don't know. I've never seen anything else from it. The Fortune 15 has a little bit of a similar shine, but the man refractor, whatever they did that year, it's incredible. It's like, you know, it's not just the fact it's rare. It's like numbered out of 75. It just has a certain look. It hits you different. You hold that card in your hand, you're like, wow, this card is insane. You know, the way they did the refractor that year. So yeah, so just going back on the whole idea of having a low availability of 90s cards has been the reality. So my whole point is maybe this year is going to be different. Maybe this year dealers have caught on. Dealers have stocked up. We're gonna show up and the 90s army is going to show up and all of a sudden there's going to be, showcase after showcase, box after box of cool 90s cards that we can dig through. I can finally get the rest of the cards I need for my holographic gold set from 99 Stars of Steel. Like nothing would make me happier for me to end this shit, for me to bring home 5 cards from the 99 Stars and Steel holographic gold set. If I can bring home 15 98 Crusade cards, commons from that set, that would be cool. Like I would love to pay $20 a common for 98 Crusades at the show. Give a dealer $200 for 10 of them. I would, $250 for 10 of them. I would still do that because again, I can see them, I can look at them, I can make sure they're on print lines or whatever. But it's like I would love to do that, but they're not there. It's kind of like no one has that level of inventory, and it's a shame. Like an insert I'm really getting into, or a set I'm really getting into. I mentioned 97 Leaf, but this Donruss Limited set, 97 Donruss Limited. Here's one I just picked up. Here's the star in rookie. Limited exposure. So here's a star. Here's the rookie, right? Um, this set's got 3 versions. You got the star power, you got the star factor, and then you got the star in rookie. These look great in hand. So, and the star factors are rare. Supposedly they only have 30 total print runs, similar to, let's say, the 96 Mirror Golds in terms of print run, and they look amazing. So again, like would there be a couple star factors at the national? I just, I think it's hypothetical. I mean, I'm getting myself excited thinking about man refractors, Centurion refractors, Fortune 15s, limited exposures, fractal matrix cards, stuff that I love and collect about those cards being there. And then when I get there, it's going to be, a bunch of, I saw more Griffey Mantle auto cards at last year's national. I think I saw 7 or 8, a various autograph, like 4 or 5 of the dual autos, a couple Mantles by himself, a couple Griffeys by himself. But again, I saw, you know, 7 or 8 of those and nothing really else that was super high end except for that one, the 99 red, mirror red I bought. Not a lot of huge Griffey cards that I found. So, I don't want to get myself too worked up. On the vintage side, uh that was one table, yeah. On the vintage side, um, you know, I've got 3 players I'm gonna be looking for, to get a card from. So I'm looking for Mays, Aaron, and Jackie Robinson. So On the Maze side, I have every Maze card from um, 57, basically through, you through 74, I guess, or 73 if you want to get technical. 74 is a World Series card. So I need the 56. I've got the 55. So I need the 56. I need the 54. I think those two are realistic. 53, due to the grade I want to get, is going to have to be sort of like next year at my bonus time, to try to get a 53 tops Maze. And then once I get 53 through 73, I'll start figuring out what I want to do for 52, 51, right? Those three cards, because they're going to be much harder to get. So, in terms of cost, in terms of just availability. But my goal at this national is to find a 56. Shouldn't be hard. That's a pretty common 50s Maze card to find. I want to find 7 or better. White or gray back, I'm not really too discerning there. I like the color on the white backs. They have more pop than the gray backs a lot of times, but some year it's weird on 56. Sometimes the gray outsells the white, sometimes the white outsells the gray. I'm not sure if it's a series issue. I don't have that part figured out in my, like I haven't studied enough to really understand when does one outsell the other. But I'm just looking for 456. Now on the Aaron side, I have every Aaron except for the 54 tops, his rookie. I need the 58. So I'm down to 2 cards for Aaron. So it's 58 and 54. So I'm looking for the 58. 7 or better, Aaron. Now, the 58 Aaron is a card that has tremendous eye appeal issues. From print lines, print dots, off centering, color issues, like it's a nightmare to try to find one with good eye appeal. So I think I'll find a couple, but will they have enough centering and eye appeal for me to want to buy? So that's going to be the challenge. Jackie Robinson. So I've already picked up a Jackie this year. I picked up a 50 Bowman PSA 6.5. So on the Pantheon, it's down a little bit on the priority because I've already picked up a Jackie this year. But the Jackie I would like to pick up at this show is the 54 tops. I don't have a 54 tops. I think it's realistic. It has a high print run. They're pretty easy to find. 6 or better on the Jackie. So that's what I'm looking for there. So those are the 3 vintage cards I'm looking for. Now, there is one Clemente card. There's 2 types of Clemente cards I'm going to be looking for too. I'm going to be looking for the Cons Wiener Clemente cards. I only own the 62. So 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 63, 64, 65. All those I need. So I got a ton of Cons cards I need. They're hard to find and they're kind of pricey. If you really look at the price points, some people want a lot of money for those cards. So it's a little tricky, if I can find a 61, that would be my perfect card to get at the National, be the 61 Cons Clemente. And then the other Clemente card I really want to get is a 68 O-Pee-Chee. If I get the 68 O-Pee-Chee, I'll actually have every Clemente base O-Pee-Chee card because I own the 65. There's no 66 or 67, and I have the 69, 70, 71, 72, and 73. So if I get the 68 O-Pee-Chee, I will have the full 68, or sorry, the full Peachy run of Clemente cards, which I think is pretty cool. So that's what I'm looking for. I mean, that's my realistic goals. Again, on the 90s cards, it's really just if there's something cool there, I'm going to buy it. Like last year, my big purchase last year on the 90s cards was I bought the entire Flair the Pulsar set from I think Mystique, right? I'm trying to think, it's no, I think it's Brilliance, right? I get those two sets mixed up all the time. But I bought the Pulsar set, so I got every card, and I graded the Thomas and the Jeter. They both came back eights, so the set's an 8 set. I've got the Griffey, still not graded yet. Um, so, you know, when I saw that set, and the reason I bought the whole set was pretty simple. She wouldn't sell me, the lady wouldn't sell me the Griffey by itself. She wouldn't break it up. So I ended up buying the entire set so I could have the Griffey. Um, so then I had all the cards. So it's a cool set. I love the set. That's just a good example of, if there's something cool there and I need it, and it's in a full set form or whatever, if I can swing it, I'll try. Because again, that card has sold a few times on eBay. I think it sold at least 2 or 3 more times. So obviously, people that had gotten to her before me, because I think there was 2 Griffies at the show before I got there. And I know, I think Dufex, I think you bought one of them. So like, you know, I think they were 8s or 9s. So maybe I think they were 8s as well. So, I think it was great. I bought the full set. I don't regret it. But it was kind of like, when you're at the show like that and you're like, I'm gonna have to spend an extra $1,000, let's say, to get a full set versus just getting the card I want. But I'm glad I did because the set's amazing, and I've got all those other players. The Ripken, the Jeter, the Frank Thomas. So it was cool. So John, how many nationals have I attended? That's a good question. Going back to when I was a kid, I went to nationals by myself when I went to Illinois working for Nestle. I would go to Chicago because I was in Jacksonville, so I could just drive to Chicago pretty easily. Um, and I actually would take a train. There was a train that would take you from Springfield to Chicago. I would do that. So like there was a lot of ways to get there. That was cool. Easier for me to get there and back than driving. So like I went to a few Chicago. So I would say that I've probably, and I've gone to the last 3, 4. So like 5 out of the last 6. And before that, I was probably hitting 3 or 4, and then Chicago and Indiana. So I'm probably over 10. I've probably gone to at least 10 nationals. More likely, because going back to when I was with my dad and shows would sometimes pop up. I know I went to one in Anaheim once. That was kind of crazy. But again, I'm gonna say is like, um, I'm definitely plus 10 and closer probably to 15, but I'd say like I'm over 10 nationals now. So, I think they kind of start blurring together a little bit because you kind of remember what cards I picked up here, what cards I picked up there. I go back to my emails because a lot of times when I would prepare for nationals, I would email dealers or people that were going to be there. And so I can go back to my emails to see, like, sometimes I put lists together. I mean, because I'm going to the national. Here's cards I'm going to sell. And are you interested in buying? So I actually knew what cards I took with me, like in 2012 and 2015, and so there's some cool stuff going back to my emails I found. But it's a lot of fun to have that history and kind of going back and look. But with the price points of everything has gone up so much, it's very painful to look at what you bought and sold cards for back in those days. It is kind of like shocking to see what cards sold for back in 2012, 2014, 2015. Versus what we're paying today. And it's like the pricing has definitely gotten to a point where it's like, yeah, this is tough. Like I can see why people might be priced out on a lot of stuff. I don't blame people for being upset with the current pricing on wax and just in general because I talk about it, like 53 Mays. I have to do that kind of like purchase by when I meant like, my bonus, like I'm gonna have to sell some cards, build up some money, wait till I get, some extra funds coming in because that card has gotten so expensive. Whereas 10 or 15 years ago, you would have just went to a show and probably sold a few cards and bought it. It wouldn't have, because everything's gone up so much. You can't, you know, my most people's salaries haven't gone up to the same rate or of inflation as what card pricing has gone. So it's like your buying power is much more reduced. Everyone says at the shows today. So yeah, it's it's a lot different in my opinion today than it used to be. Um, and that's why I mean, if you go to shows, and the national will be no different. A lot of guys in here have talked about um, the common boxes, the 25 cent, the 50 cent, dollar. The people who scour those boxes, I mean, the guy like Mealy Pops. I kind of talked about him a little bit in my dealer review. Like I've never been able to really make a deal with Mealy Pops, but his tables are very popular because people scour those boxes because he's got good cards in them. But the whole point is just those boxes are popular because you can afford cards in there, and you might be able to find some cards that are undervalued. And at the national, finding deals and finding cards undervalued is really hard. Now, the big thing at the national, and the one thing I always look for in terms of hobby health, is how strong the dealers are paying. This I was listening to the sports card nonsense today, one of their podcasts. I was driving to get my daughter from camp, and Mike said something like, well, if you go to the national, be prepared to get a 40 or 50% comp offer on your cards. He's like, you're gonna get lowballed if you go to the national. That's just how it works. I don't think that's true anymore. I just don't think that's true. I think the need for inventory, the need for prepacked inventory, especially, has caused dealers, if they really want to have inventory, they better get their offers to 70 plus, or they're not going to be buying mini cards. And it's just, right now I do feel the hobby's in a weird space where you're getting more money for your cards, but everything costs more. So does it offset to some extent? Meaning, like, it was very common. I'm just going to say it. 60% offers from dealers was the norm for a long time. And now we're at 80%. We're seeing that be more normal now. But then cards cost more. So it's just kind of like, yeah. And for people like me who bought cards a long time ago, who've had these collections, I look at a card I paid. Let's talk about like something silly. Well, like my 55 Aaron 8. I paid $1,200 for that card. And you say, well, that card's now like $3,000 or $4,000. I haven't looked at recent comps, but it's, okay. If I sell it at 80% of comp, I'm still making $2,000 on that card from when I originally bought it. So it's like, to me, I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to get 90% or something. I'm still making a good, healthy margin. But if you're buying today, like at that card at $3,000 or $4,000, you certainly want to get as much out of it as possible. So for me, it's like, well, I'm making, my my money was sunk, years ago on a lot of these cards. Um, so I don't have that same mentality. Like I have to get, max, a 95 offer to consider selling, but I can see why people do. So I get it. And like you said, we're in a weird hobby right now in terms of pricing, and the angst around, how much everything costs. So, you know, and I'm going back to the 90s cards too. I do think the reason why 90s cards are kind of fun right now is because people can go back to those cards. Um, and outside of Griffey and a few other players, um, you know, outside of a few, players from the 90s, you can still get a lot of these guys cheap. You mentioned Jim Thome or Tome. Defects like perfect example, Manny Ramirez. I know Neo collects Manny Ramirez. Perfect example of a guy you could buy tons of amazing cards from and never break a $20 bill, right? You know, I just bought this Greg Maddux card, this embossed refractor Greg Maddux. You know, one of the coolest designs ever. It's silver, it's not gold, but it's still a cool card. And you're not breaking a hundy for that card. I mean, a box of Topps Chrome is, you know, what, $400 for a jumbo box, and you could buy 4 or 5 embossed refractor Hall of Famers for that. You know, um, it's just that's why I do think the '90s cards have more appeal than just nostalgia. It's value. You can get these Hall of Fame guys, these bad, you know, it's not Griffey, but it's like guys who I mentioned Cal Ripken and Tony Gwynn and Ryan Sandberg and George Brett and guys who were amazing players. Eddie Murray, like these guys were some of the best players ever, and some of their cards are $5 or $10 for some of the coolest inserts that ever existed. And again, you know, like that's why the '90s cards to me are gaining in popularity because they are rare, they are cool, they are cheap comparatively. So, will that always stay there? I don't know, but I say it last year, this year is if there's a dealer who's smart, and if I had the money and the bankroll to do it, I would be like the '90s Palooza guy. You know, you show at my table, it's going to be like Willy Wonka. You know, if I was going to have a perfect national table, I would be like the '90s Willy Wonka guy, like boxes of unopened '90s cards, tons and tons of cool set cards, and not just Griffey cards, but like every player from the '90s that was cool, and all the cool sets, and people could get their player, they could get their sets. They, you know, that would be my table. Like that would be my table at the National would be something like, you know, '90s Palooza. Just, you know, Fleur Brilliance, Mystique cards, established cards, embossed refractors, you know, essential credentials, you know, whatever. Like just all the cool inserts from the '90s, all in one place. Commons, minor stars, Hall of Famers, you know, and as many Griffeys and Thomases I can afford on the table, and just have people, you know, and I think that table would get swamped. I think if someone showed up the table at the National with like say 15,000 '90s cool rare '90s cards from commons all the way through major, you know, superstars from all these different sets, they would get swamped. And it's just no one has that inventory that I know of. There's collectors out there that have some of that inventory, but does dealers, you know, dealers and collectors are not the same thing. That's for sure. Um, so yeah, like it's you know it's going to be a fun national regardless. And I would say this to you guys. I mean, I know as I talk about being in the hobby, being on YouTube, the fun part of all this is again the experience and just being there and having opportunities to see and talk and be around the hobby. That's worth something. And I kind of rag on the national for this, you know, selling the experience. You know, like you're going to pay more because you're going to have a fun time, but it is fun to be there and experience things. So even if your budget's $500 or $200 when you go to the national, and your whole goal is to go through the 25-cent boxes and dollar boxes and get players that you collect, you're still going to have a great time. You're still going to have fun. You know, even if you don't have the 10,000, the 50,000, the 68 3D experience, right? You're still going to have fun. That's why the national is such a cool thing. And again, the Fanatics Fest is coming up later on. Will it be fun? It's in New York. I might go. I mean, I'm in New York, so I could take a train and go see it. And I might, you know, that's something I'm thinking about. But the thing is like this hobby should be sort of price, you know, independent. You know, you don't need to be Marshall Fogel to be, you know, independently wealthy to have fun in the hobby. And I know we get really stressed out when we feel like we're priced out. But I do feel like there's ways to enjoy the hobby. And I have, gone to 90s cards because not only because they're cool and whatever, but they're cheap. I don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get one card for my collection. And I think that is ultimately what is fun, is when I can go to a show, buy a few cards, talk to a lot of people, have fun, go out to dinner, hang out with my friends. And then if I make a great deal, if I get a great card, if I find something I need, that's like icing on the cake. It even if it doesn't happen, even if all I do is pick up a few cards here and there, make a few deals, sell a few cards, and I don't come home with something, epic, I'll still have a good time and I'll forget all about my work, my stress, what's going on in the world right now, and I'll just have fun in that moment. And that's really why it's something you should do. You should always, if you can go to the national, it's that fun experience. There's trade nights again where you could, even if you don't have a lot of cash, you might be able to trade your way into some cards. So again, there's a lot of opportunities. And I do feel like that's makes the hobby better. Because one of the things I thought about before I came on tonight was, is the hobby better today in 2024 than it was in 2004, in 94, in 84, right? You know, that is what and I think about today is, in one way, in some ways, I've always said, and you've heard me say this on my channel if you're a long time listener, is, the hobby doesn't really solve problems. It just kind of like creates ways to monetize problems, like PSA grading is a good example, or grading. You know, trim cards were a problem, so we're going to monetize a service for you to try to make sure that the cards aren't trimmed or they're real, right? You pay a lot of money for that. So we don't really get rid of the problem. We just try to find a way to make money off the problem. But as far as like the experience side of it, I think that part of it is better. I think the shows are better. The community has, with social media, has better chances of communicating with each other. The connectedness is a little bit better. I think the hobby is better educated than it ever has been with all the tools that we have today, from pricing, from just what's available for people to talk about. The trade nights didn't exist until just recently, so that's a huge improvement. That's a huge hobby positive. Go to a trade night; they're pretty amazing. So I think all in all, we're better. We are better today than we were 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. And that's just it. It is better. Some things are worse. Some things have gotten better. But an overall, I think it's a net positive. It outweighs the price point changes. It outweighs the scumminess and the scammers in the hobby. It still outweighs some of the negatives because they're always going to be there. But I do feel like when I go to a show today, like at the National, I have more fun. I'm more connected. There's more stuff for me to do. There's more ways for me to be involved than there has ever been. And it just seems like that part's growing. So if that is the future of the hobby, that connectiveness, that ability to go there and have fun and not have to spend a ton of money if I don't want to, then yes, I think the hobby is in good shape. But we still have to be, I would still like to see other things improved. But it's, as of today, I will say that, when I go to the National, and the last two or three I've been to have been the most fun I've had. And it's been, the only thing that would make it better is, I know my dad, maybe I can get him to go to one more national with me, but that was always fun to take my dad with me. So that would be the next phase, is hopefully I can get my dad to another national before it's too late. Before, it's just like, there's that physical thing, of like being able to walk and do all that. So that's the next, thing I hope to do one more time, but hope you guys had fun. Yeah, I agree, man. Like, that's what life's about. Just, the experience, because in the day, none of us are going to be buried with the cards. Or at some point, someone else is going to own these things, or they're going to go to the trash or whatever. but the experience you have and the fun you had along the way is what it's really about. So hope you guys had a good night. I appreciate you joining me for the show. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's ever subscribed, ever watched a single minute of a video, who's ever left a comment. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye, guys.